the history behind the name and how that name was given to you.
I would love to. That's one of my favorite stories. When I got into therapy, I didn't have friends. I had acquaintances. I did run around with the people that my husband at the time and his friends ran around with. So I was in the circles, but I wasn't friends. So my counselor said, "You must make women friends." And I laughed at her and said, "Why would I do that? What can they do for me?" And she said, "I don't really care what they can do for you. You've got to make women friends." And I was in enough pain that I did what she told me. So I was watching at a 12-step meeting to see who it was I thought I could trust and to figure out who could be my friend. And so I went up to this lady and I said, "I wonder if we could go get a cup of coffee or a Coke or something, um, and I could get to know you." And she said, "Well, you know, several of us pray the rosary for peace, and we're going to be praying on Thursday night," and this was on Tuesday night. She said, "Why don't you come and meet with us?" And I said, "Okay." And I was raised Southern Baptist, and I had no idea what the rosary was. But I went to the Catholic bookstore, and I sat down in front of the shelf where the rosaries were. And I asked the guy, "How do you choose a rosary?" And he said, "Just look at them and decide which one you want." So I would pick them up. They were in little boxes with a clear bottom. I would pick them up, turn over and look at them, put them back down, pick them up. And I picked one up and turned it over, and it was red, which happens to be my favorite color. But also I started tearing up. And I thought, okay, there's something here, but I don't know what it is. But I decided I would buy that. So I took it to the counter and I said, "I want this rosary, but it's in a box that's got this nun on it. Can I have a box that's got Mary on it?" And I'm surprised he let me do that, but he did. And so he takes the rosary out of the box to put it in the other box, and he said, "You found a friend." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "This is the little flower." And I said, and he said, "You need to take it down and have Father Joe Tagg bless it." And I did not know what it meant to have something blessed. And so I said, "Okay, I need to pay for this." And I wrote the check and went on. And so I went to where we were going to pray the rosary for peace and met my friend at the door, and she introduced me to the person leading it. And Noopy came over. She's a lawyer in town, and she said, "I understand you have a new rosary." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Can I see it?" And I said, "Sure." And I handed it to her. And she went, "You found a friend." And I went, "Excuse me?" She said, "This is St. Teresa of Lisieux, the little flower," and it had a little icon on it. And I said, "Okay." And she said, "You need to take it and have Joe Tagg bless it." And I said, "Who's Joe Tagg?" And she said, "It's a priest here in town." I said, "Okay." So I followed their lead and we prayed the rosary for peace that night. And the next morning I got up looking for this man, and I found him in the diocesan office. And I called and asked could he bless my rosary, and I went down there and he gave me a little book about St. Teresa of Lisieux. And it's called Story of a Soul. And I read the book, and it's a very precious story of her life. She knew from when she was a very young child that she wanted to be a nun. And she died at a very young age in her early 20s of tuberculosis. But as I began to walk the journey for the change that was happening in my life, it was as though she were a friend walking with me. And somebody asked me, "Do I pray to her?" And I said, "I don't pray to her, but like I might pick up the phone and call you, or I might sit down with you and tell you something. I tell Therese things, and I feel like we have conversations." And I just felt like she walked with us. As we began to form the community and started to talk about the name, they said, the board said, "What are we going to name it?" And I said, "I'd like to name it the Community of St. Teresa of Lisieux." Community, because that's what we need to teach the women, is how to live in community and trust. And then St. Teresa is so precious to me. They said, "Nah, that's, that name's out there too much. She's called the little flower." And one of them said, "Why do you want to name it that?" And when I told her, then they voted to name it the Community of St. Teresa of Lisieux. I just am so grateful for her influence in my life. The funny thing was, when I was a child, I thought I should be a preacher. And in the Baptist church at that time, women did not preach. And so I thought, well, I'll be a missionary. And at that time, what I found out was they didn't want women missionaries unless they were married to a man missionary. And when I found St. Therese, she's the patron saint of missions. So God has just given me affirmations all along the way so I can continue this journey.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You are welcome.